Hello, welcome to this community newspaper Facebook program, Excellence in Education. This is Marta Perez, and our mission is to expose and inspire excellence in education. Please follow us on Facebook and send questions via our chat room. Today, we have a very special guest on our show, Excellence in Education, because he has spent his life seeking excellence in education in our community. He is Dr. Martin Karp, a very distinguished former school board member of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Currently, he is the Dean of Academic Affairs and Community Engagement for the Talmudic University Consortium of Schools, ranging from elementary school to adult education programs. Dr. Karp has been throughout his life a strong advocate for interest and needs based learning. This hones in on educational strategies that address each child as an individual learner. He is a great man in our community, a husband and father of three exceptional boys. Please welcome Dr. Martin Karp. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Karp. And our audience would like to know a little bit about your background and how you grew up.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Perez. It's great to be here. And for me, the opportunity to speak with you openly is such a pleasure because some of the listeners and viewers don't realize that as an elected official, we don't get to have these conversations that often because of something called the Sunshine Law.
Mhm.
So to be able to speak like this is actually very enjoyable.
Very
And
nice.
I thank you for teeing it up like that. And really, that's where things begin. The family and the support. So that gives me an opportunity to thank my wife and my kids and my parents and actually colleagues from the board and people that I've worked with in the past and friends, whether they're friends for many years or some of my newer friends that I've met over the last few years that have provided support and guidance and really give you the push to keep going and to try to continue to make a difference in whatever platform that is, whether it's as a member of the school board or as part of the Talmudic University family. So going back a number of years, it's actually really the past years, 30 years, when I began in Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
You were two at the
I
time.
was two at the time. And looking back, it's been a remarkable journey. Just even last night, I received a message from a former student asking for some help and guidance, and I get this all of the time.
Well, tell us about you began as a teacher,
Yes, right.
and what did you teach
So
and
we
where?
we taught in a very unique gifted program for students as part of, believe it or not, gifted does include students with special needs.
How
And
did you decide to become a teacher? How tell us about that process in your young life.
And yes. So looking back, I have to look back a long ways now if we're talking my young life, but looking back, so I guess I'd always had exposure and opportunities with youth. So I was involved in Boy Scouts and I
Eagle
did Eagle
Scout,
Scout.
very wonderful.
And so a number of other youth organizations. And when I first came back from a graduate school program, I worked in communications, but I had an opportunity to do something at one of the local schools.
And you have a PhD from what
Well,
university?
right, the doctors in ed leadership from the University of Miami. I think
Uh-huh.
you also have
Also
some,
from UM,
right?
yes.
So the University of Miami, and so when I came back, I had some opportunities to do some work with young
So
people.
you were a teacher, and then you were a teacher. Then you got your
Actually,
PhD.
before, right, while I was going to
While
school.
you were going to school, you were also teaching,
Yes.
and then when you received your doctorate, you became a broadcaster.
Right. I believe it or not, during that time, I had a show. First, it was The World According to Karp, then The
Uh-huh.
World According to Karp and Davis. And
Uh-huh.
then I did a late night show called The Doc Martin Show.
Oh wow!
And actually, for a short period of time, I did one that was like Lois and Karp. or Karp and Crop with the
Uh-huh.
former board member's
Uh-huh.
wife,
Uh-huh.
going way, way back. And it was really an exciting opportunity to engage, but
So
mostly on educational issues.
so you always like to be in front of people educating
Yes,
in both places. I think when you teach, you have to be a little bit of an actor almost
for sure.
to bring to well, you have to be a communicator. I think is a better way to put it.
That's 100% right. And interestingly, the students who I have remained in touch with or who've reached out to me over the years, and now there's a whole new group of students because I'm back working with them, but they don't recall a particular test that you administered to them or an activity that was a part of the curriculum per se. They'll remember the curriculum in general, like if you did an exciting unit of study, but they remember your feeling that they could come to you if they needed help, if there was warmth. So it's exactly what you're talking about. You have to be a good communicator, but you have to be someone who's approachable. A lot of these students are dealing with difficult challenges in their lives. And if they know that there's a safe space and a safe place and someone who they can speak to and that will recognize their challenges and sort of have their back, that is what they remember. And that's what you can build upon.
How
So,
was it for you the first like the first few times you had a classroom and
right,
you had to you were a young guy
right.
and I don't know what was your charge? You had how many students and
Right. Well, at the beginning, we had actually, in the first year, we were in a private school. It was a unique partnership. There was no room for us in the public school, and we had a combined program with private and public school students. But it was really um, challenging because we were a new program, and people from the district kept coming to observe us. So, fortunately, I think maybe I was just young and I didn't really, it didn't bother me. So I just welcomed it and was excited by it. But there was a lot of energy that comes from young people. I've also taught graduate school, and I'll tell you, with young
where
people
did you teach
at
graduate school?
Nova Southeastern
Ah,
University.
and
But with the young people, there's so much curiosity and enthusiasm and interest in learning. Of course, some students you have to build that. That doesn't come automatically. But in general, I always found that you can feed off young people's energy. So for me, the beginning was exciting. But the one thing that I didn't want is I didn't want what was kept being told in graduate school was because I didn't go undergraduate for education. I went for business and then I went
ah
for communications. But the thing that I was told in the education classes was, well, your first year is not going to be your good year. You're just learning and the students, it's going to be difficult, so on and so forth. And I just refused to accept that because I felt these kids don't get a do-over. So if I go in and I'm just learning at their expense, that wouldn't be fair to them. So I really pushed myself extra hard to do my very best that first year and to not have that situation where I was learning. So I teamed up with people who could mentor me, and I tried to be extremely creative. So I think I went over the top to
ah
compensate for what
you,
I was afraid would be a weak
well, you
first
always
year.
had a great reputation as a teacher, and as
Appreciate that.
everything else you've done in your life.
Thank you.
Your children should be very proud of
Thanks.
their father, and I know Danielle, your wife, is very proud of you
Thank you.
also. Uh, you've done a lot of things for a person who says he does, he doesn't like to be the center of attention a little bit. I think you do, although you're mild mannered about it. But you ran for office. You've had programs. I mean, these are not
Right.
things that most people do. What has what has been the most inspirational thing that you've done, or the thing that you said, aha, I didn't think I could do this perhaps, but I was able to accomplish this?
I think one of them was being on the board for sure. It kind of ran against my personality a little bit, even though, yes, I can be here and I can be friendly and I could be talking on the mic. The reality is, it is different when you get in front of a group and you're involved. Look,
And
we're
some people don't
educators,
realize what a big district this is. This is the fourth largest school district. The
right?
budget now is
Sure.
$7 billion. And it's a lot of responsibility and a lot has to go into it.
I think for me, it's pushing yourself to get out of your comfort zone. I think my whole life has been, I wouldn't say a struggle for sure, but I would say it's a way to figure out how can you push yourself to do something you're not necessarily comfortable doing. And so I did that as a board member, and I
Fundraising is one of those
for sure,
things.
for sure.
No
And I
fun.
did this now, when I transitioned off the board, one of the most difficult things, it's one thing if you're termed out, but to term yourself out is a very tough thing to do.
Yeah,
For me, I actually enjoyed very much being on the board because I felt I could see firsthand how I was helping a lot of people. And I developed relationships not only with the staff over the years, but with the board members. The fact is that it was hard when we were on the dais, but when you're off the dais,
it's
you
not.
really get to see people
Of
in a
course.
different light,
Of course.
and you get to appreciate them. And every board member that I worked with had a unique set of skills
Uh-huh.
that I learned
That's
from. And for
well,
me,
Martin. I was devastated. I still am. That you were off the board
right,
because I thought so many of your decisions were very wise
thanks.
and aligned with mine. There,
Well, I
uh,
appreciate your
but I am in part a recipient of something good as a result of your leaving because now your former assistant, who is fabulous young man, is now my assistant, and I am so fortunate to have him. The wonderful Gerald Bloomstein, who worked
fantastic.
with, is your friend, personal friend as well,
Sure.
and is wonderful. So I'm a recipient of that, but I was devastated because I thought you had so much institutional knowledge, knew so much, and as you say, we may have on the board members have battles and etc. But we get to know each other
Right.
and appreciate each other as human beings as
Correct.
well.
Correct.
But
And by the way, the institutional knowledge piece,
mm,
I'm going to take this moment to thank Miss Baez Geller. I don't know if I've ever done it like this, but it was a very unique situation after she was elected, and for her to provide me an opportunity to work with her over a period of time. I'm very grateful for that because I worked very hard and I learned a number of things, and she was open to doing some of the things with me, the policy discussions, the visitations to the schools, and I'm grateful for her and for that opportunity.
well, and she was very fortunate to have you help her in that regard
Right,
because then she could come in and see how you saw things and
right.
perhaps explain certain things to her. But it was devastating nonetheless.
Thank you.
And yes, and of course she's our new board member, and
Right,
we're happy to have her. Absolutely. But as I say, there were some things that I thought it takes a while, the learning curve,
right.
and you had it, but you decided nonetheless to leave. And so tell us about that. And
Sure.
I also want to hear about your current position and
Thanks.
the school and how people can help if they're interested, and anyone that hasn't become aware of the school. I know that the fact that they have you is going to be a big blessing for them and their growth.
I appreciate that. So, transitioning off the board, it's funny
Mm.
because there were times we mentioned Gerald. There were times previous to that term that I said, well, maybe I'm going to transition off. Maybe I'm going to do it now. But after 16 years, it was a good time for me personally to do that and to get back in the workforce full time. I felt like that was the right timing. So I transitioned after spending a little period of time with Miss Baez Geller. I transitioned to Talmudic University. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, they're a consortium of schools. There's three campuses in South Florida. We have a girls K-8, a boys K-8, a high school piece, university, and also adult education programs where I think there's 10,000 annual participants in their adult education
Yeah.
course offerings. Even at the university level, I believe you can get a bachelor's in Talmudic studies. So this is a very established institution. Back in 1965, they started the high school piece, and then they added as they went along the There's
Where are they housed?
so the main headquarters is right as you enter Miami Beach. When you come over the Julia Tuttle Causeway, there's a building right there, the Talmudic University headquarters.
Is that
The
where your offices are?
so I have one. I worked there yesterday evening, but my main office is in the North Miami campus, which is basically right off of 95 and 135th Street.
So you're working a lot if you're there day and night.
I'm working a lot, but again, I achieve the balance like I strive to do on the board. I still have, they're not as young, but young kids, and that's important so that I'm able to work around their schedules and make sure that you know,
And
I'm active with them.
how the campuses for the girls K-8 and the
Right.
boys K-8 are in the same building or
No,
different?
so interestingly, they were.
Mhm.
Just recently, the campus is divided. So one campus for the girls is on Miami Beach near Biscayne Beach Elementary, just a
Okay.
couple of blocks away, and the boys' campus is in North Miami. And then the high school and university classes are right on 41st Street on Miami Beach. And
Mhm.
then they recently purchased a former military academy in Pennsylvania,
Oh.
and it's beautiful. We were just there. I was there for a retreat. At the beginning, I felt like I was back on the school board because we had all the name cards out there. We had a moderator, and we were going over strategic planning. I really felt great. I just didn't see my board member colleagues, but I was with fine people. Rabbi Zweig, actually, the father, Rabbi Yochanan Zweig, started everything. And he and his wife Rivka have built a tremendous family and community. The president is Rabbi Yitzhak Zweig. His brother Rabbi Akiva Zweig is a Rosh Yeshiva, and the Zweig family, Elchanan, I work with closely, he's one of the principals, have really made a tremendous impact in the community, and they're building something very special.
And it is a religious school, and I
Right.
wanted to ask you, given your background in
Sure.
education, how important is it to have, in your opinion,
Right.
to have religion in the life of children? Because I happen to think it's very important, and I happen to think that having a moral compass, regardless of the religion, is so important in the basis of of the upbringing of a human being. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that values based learning, what they call it and what we call it, Torah based learning, is very important. It's very impactful in a positive way if it's done the right way. So here with the students, they start their day off with morning prayers. If it's a Monday and a Thursday, they'll take out the Torah, and they'll, like, if they're reading from Exodus or Genesis or whatever, any of the five books of Moses, they're doing those Torah readings. They're doing the prayers on a daily basis, and I think that it starts your day off in a very positive way, where you're connecting with God, you're connecting on a spiritual
With a
level.
higher.
Right. You're also recognizing that you're a part of a big puzzle. You're one piece, but we all are interconnected. The values, about how to treat one another, about showing respect, the moral teachings can really ground a child in a very positive way. And I think that also has to combine with the fact that the parents who make this decision see the value in it. You can't really just say, well, you're going to go to this school and you just go. I think the parents also have to have buy-in to it. And then the kids realize that it's a priority. And if it's a priority, it becomes a kind of a way of who you are and what is important. So the religious aspect is very healthy. It's very positive. Again, if it's done right. In the case of a school like this, it's a daily thing. So it becomes a part of your routine, a recognition that there's something greater than you, but that you're a part of a community is, I think, very, very important and very positive.
And how human beings treat each other.
Right.
So, have you ever given thought about, given the restrictions of the
Right.
public schools, that the separation of
Sure.
the church and state?
Right.
Um, I often think about ways that we are able, perhaps, to incorporate some of that, because students whose parents do not afford them the
Right.
opportunities like the students in your school, I feel they miss out on a lot, and a lot of things that could be so comforting for
right.
them. What have you given that any thought?
Yeah, sure.
How that could be
Yeah, a
accomplished?
lot of thought. And I know that there's different programs available. I think that what happens for people who do actually provide religious education for their kids, but not on a daily basis, whether they're public school stakeholders or actually maybe parochial school stakeholders, but they're not religious based. They figure out a way where they look for programs, maybe Sunday school, or they do programs after hours. But I think what the challenge there is that that might be once a week, or where the child has to choose between a birthday party or a fun activity or going out on the boat or going to the park or going to the zoo versus going to a particular class. And then what could happen is then they almost resent having to do it, or they don't get it in a strong way. So it's a very difficult thing to navigate. I think that's why schools like the school that I work with at Talmudic University provide something very powerful, because you don't have to give up something else to do it. It's part of the daily process. In the public school, of course, that is a greater challenge. Of course, you have moment of silence. You have,
Which was very difficult to get.
right,
23 years ago, that was very challenged. I proposed that,
right,
having a moment of silence meditation,
right,
and the teachers union actually, Pat Tornillo at the time, this the teachers cannot do this. This is
right, right,
we can't have this. But things have evolved, and we
right.
have that. And when I was a little girl, we had a moment of silent meditation in public schools, and I didn't think that was offensive in any way, or it's not um, promoting any
Right.
one religion over another, or any religion at all. But I think it's a positive thing.
And I think what's unique about the Jewish religious educational experience is that it provides a connection to a 3,000-year history. So, like for example, recently I did interest inventories with the students because I'm trying to find out where some of their passions lie, because I believe strongly, as you do, in providing an individualized curriculum wherever possible. You
Yes.
know, as our superintendent, I guess former superintendent would say, one size fits none, right? So if you look at ways to be able to individualize, even if it's a project, maybe you can't do it, within the curriculum at every single subject. But if you can do that, then you really bring out something special about each student. And what I found with the inventories was a few things. And this is where it gets back to the religious education. Some kids identified, if they could meet one person in the Bible, who would that be? They would
Mhm.
identify biblical people. They would say, who are their role models? They would identify a biblical person versus, some of the pop culture folks.
Mhm.
And certainly not to denigrate a pop culture person, but it's interesting when you have somebody that, you say, well, Moses, that,
Yes,
wow, look at that as a
and
role model.
yes,
Interesting.
yes.
Or they may have said that, that they view a role model as a grandparent or a parent. That's where the values based education is very strong, because they see that a grandparent is an important role model, or a parent, and that's really very impactful. Others, if they could have one place where they wanted to visit, they would mention Israel, because they would see that there's that connection to not a 73-year history in terms of statehood or independence, but 3,000 years where you can go and you can see an archaeological dig and see the artifacts and see that your heritage and your background is one that you should be proud of and excited about. And so I think that's the great thing about if it's a Jewish education done well, you see that there's a connection and that there's something that you can have pride in. And I think that that's what they do well. You did mention, that some people aren't able to afford that type of education.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is at the Talmudic University Consortium of Schools, depending on the grade level, anywhere from 60 to 70 to 80% of the students are either receiving financial assistance or on scholarship. What happens in a more orthodox community, the families tend to be larger. And when you have larger families, you have greater expenses. And not all, some struggle it's financially, but others who may not struggle or may not be at the poverty line, just may have a larger family,
Of
which
course,
is
more
that
expenses.
more expenses. So I think the fact that you have all these scholarships that are provided to the students shows that it's not that everybody who goes can necessarily afford it, but they prioritize that. They may give up a family vacation. They may decide not to buy this car for another year.
Mhm.
So it's really something that they have to navigate. And so, that's something that a lot of people don't realize. The other thing is, at the Talmudic University, the different schools, whether it's Yeshiva Elementary School, I love their name, YES. It's like yes with an exclamation point. I don't think it's the opposite of Nancy Reagan's just say no,
Uh-huh.
but just say yes is a good
Is a
slogan.
good slogan.
But you see that in the schools that they're not a homogeneous bunch. You think of maybe an Orthodox Jewish day school as a very similar group of people. But if you really go and visit, and by the way, I invite anybody who would like to visit to please email me. It's I think
Where do they email you?
they can email me at martinkarp@talmudicu.edu. But if you email me or reach out to me, you'll find out that you can come and visit the campus. We're a very interesting group of people from different backgrounds and different
And if
experiences.
someone wanted to help the university
Right.
by contributing, since you
Sure.
do have so many, there's always
Right.
expenses in an educational institution. How could they help? How could
So
they do
there's a
that?
few things that are amazing programs. For example, they provide social services. One is called Helping Hands Food Co-op. They feed 600 families annually. So they identify 600 families and provide them food to get through the year. There's something called Bikur Cholim, 500 free nights of hospitality for people who are visiting those who are ill or hospitalized. Because the one campus you asked where it is, it's right at the beginning of Miami Beach. It's across the street from Mount Sinai Hospital. So people don't have a place to stay or can't afford to stay. They provide lodging for those families to visit their um, relatives or friends who are ill. There's something called Mesoris Avraham. Um, what is that? Shiach Gamach, right? Shiva Gamach, Shiva Gamach. I'm learning all these Yiddish words, see? And 100 families are helped. Those who are in mourning, they provide support for those families who are bereaved. And finally, there's a lending gamach where 63 interest-free loans are provided for nearly $400,000 to folks who need support, financial assistance, and they get those interest-free. By the way, these campuses, the footprint of these campuses is nearly 300,000 square feet.
Wow, that's great.
So
And
there's a lot,
growing.
and growing and
Good, good.
growing.
Okay, so we have very little time left. Flew by. I hope you come back and we'll have more chances to speak about so many
Sure.
other things. I had so many questions to ask you, but this question, Gerald told me to ask you,
Uh-oh.
what's in the future? Any more political aspirations for you?
You're a troublemaker. He's a troublemaker. So I'll be straightforward and say I really did enjoy public service, and
Mhm.
I believe that it would have to be something that would make sense for me and that would make sense for the community if they would support me. So when I ran for school board, it was a no-brainer because I had done the radio show, I had addressed public policy, I had the doctorate in ed leadership. So it was something that just fit, and thankfully the community supported me and we worked together. So yes, if there was something there in the future that I felt that I could make a difference and that made sense, I would pursue it
Two
politically.
final questions. What is the best thing about public service and what is the worst thing about public service?
The
Being an elected official, what I
Sure.
mean by that.
I think the best thing was meeting amazing people, whether it was in the community, or on the board or the staff. Well, like I said, it can get a bit intense, but like I said, I had a chance to meet people outside as well and get to know them. But I think the people was the best thing. I met so many people, and I could see firsthand how somebody could reach out to me and I could help them, and then I could see the result. When you're not in an organization where you can help like that, you feel you're frustrated. But to be able to pick up the phone, make a call, and then see somebody gets a particular service, that's incredible.
That's
That's
wonderful. Yes,
incredible.
yes.
And I guess the most difficult part was just maybe some of the restrictions. Sometimes you almost feel like because you're in the public eye, there's certain things that other people could do, but if you do them, you may get questioned, or you may have to. People don't realize it's actually harder for elected officials to do. Like I was talking to you before we started with the Sunshine Law. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
staff can talk to one another, but
Uh-huh.
why can't we talk to one another? And,
Right.
if we're trying to get things done in the
Uh-huh.
right way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you here. You are certainly a representative of excellence in
Thank
education. I
you.
hope you'll come back, and I hope that you will join us again for our program, Excellence in Education. Thank you.
Thank you.